It was only a matter of time before the New Orleans Saints got sick of every other NFC South team stealing their Saints headlines. Tampa Bay re-signing Mike Evans and re-signing Baker Mayfield and being the division champs. The Atlanta Falcons, of course, signing Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney, rebuilding their team. Now they're the favorites of the NFC South. Well, the New Orleans Saints have said, not so fast, sir. We have signed Chase Young. The New Orleans Saints have signed Chase Young. And this is a fascinating signing for a lot of reasons, but this is the typical New Orleans Saints flashy, splashy Saints signing. It's exactly what it is. But this one might have a lot of upside in a one-year contract, and it's not one of the older players the Saints typically go after. This is a Saints team that is rather old and competing to win now. They signed Derek Carr last offseason. They had the expectations of winning that division. They fell short. They were the favorite to win that division. They fell short. What was one of the weaknesses of their team? Their pass rush, which has been a weakness for their team for the last couple of years. Well, they bring in the former first round, highly touted Ohio State Washington Commander, and as of recently, San Francisco 49er, Chase Young. Now, Chase Young is young. He is 24 right now, and he's turning 25 in about a month, a little bit less than a month. So he is extremely moldable. He has not played that much in the NFL, actually. If you look at his track record, in his rookie season, he was really, really good. He was the defensive rookie of the year. He had 7.5 sacks, 3 fumble recoveries, 4 forced fumbles, 4 passes defensed, 44 tackles, 12 quarterback hits, and 10 tackles for loss. He had a very good season, on top of grading out very well. He was extremely disruptive. But then the following season, he had half of his season cut short. He was playing injured, and he did not put up the sack totals as expected. And he fell off. And then instantly, he became one of the most overrated players in football. In 2022, he gets hurt again, only plays 3 games. So he only had 1.5 sacks in 2 years, guys. Essentially 2 seasons. He only had 1.5 sacks. But then this past year, he had a bounce-back season where he played his best football since his rookie year. I'm not sure that you would call it his best football. I'm not sure you would say he was quite as good as that season. But he did have 7.5 sacks in total playing for the Niners and the Commanders. Interesting enough, he had more sacks with the Commanders, 5 to 2.5. And he actually played more games with the Niners. So that's something to take note. He did also have more quarterback hits with the Commanders than the 49ers. And he had more tackles with the Commanders than the 49ers. I don't know if that was because he was in more of a rotational role. I don't know if that was because he wasn't great in that scheme. I'm not exactly sure, okay? But what I do know is that he is a volatile player, that he is a controversial player, and that he is somebody with a lot of upside. And in this deal, 1 year, $13 million in max, there is not a lot of downside to it. The only downside is that the Saints have to pay it, which we know that the Saints, in terms of salary cap, they just keep pushing that baby down the road. So salary is never really difficult for them to figure out. At least it seems that way with the New Orleans Saints. But they needed to make a move, right? They've been watching Atlanta. They've been watching Tampa Bay. Carolina's on the rise. And now you take a look at their depth chart, and that solves a big hole for them, and it moves people around on their defensive line. Cameron Jordan has been aging. It would be nice for Cameron Jordan to not have to play so many snaps. I think Chase Young coming in, that's going to help that issue. Cameron Jordan will be more explosive. Cameron Jordan will be a better player. Cameron Jordan will be more useful because he's more rested. He's older. He can't play every play, right? Having Cameron Jordan with Chase Young is going to help Chase Young, help him grow, mold him, right? Craft his game. Cameron Jordan and Chase Young are fairly similar in terms of build, in terms of play style. They're power rushers, right? Chase Young is not known for his Von Miller-like bend and flexibility. He is a power, speed to power type of guy. And he's about his first steps. And Cam Jordan has never been super bendy, but he's been a technician. And allowing Chase Young to team up with Cameron Jordan, that could really help Chase Young develop. This could be, in many ways, for Cameron Jordan, like a Stephon Gilmore type experience where he's helping a Trayvon Diggs or a J.C. Jackson get better while he's there playing at a high level himself. So that's how I think of this relationship, is like Chase Young could maybe really grow in this season with Cam Jordan. And then on top of that, a really great defensive mind in Dennis Allen who's going to know how to utilize him. And I really feel like it wasn't the greatest fit in San Francisco. I felt like he wasn't the same run defender. I felt like, playing in that wide 9 front didn't do him any favors. And it felt like it just wasn't his cup of tea. That's what I would say. It wasn't his cup of tea. I think he was a more useful player in Washington. I think he'll be a more useful player in New Orleans, personally. He did have a strong Super Bowl. I would say that. He did have good moments. I remember the Jacksonville game was a really good one for him. But now you look at this defensive line, Carl Granderson, a little bit less pressure on him to produce, although he's a good player. Brian Brzee is on the rise. They don't have any elite players in the interior, but this helps the depth of the defensive line. When the Saints defense was at its best a couple years ago, it was thanks to the depth and the talent of the defensive line and those guys that they had on there, right? Including Marcus Davenport, including Trey Hendrickson, including Sheldon Rankins, including, Onyemata, all these guys that they had on their D-line that they could cycle in and they could still be effective and they could be versatile. And I'm intrigued to see how Young can play in this system because I feel like he can stand up, he can put hand in the dirt, he'll be pretty effective on stunts because he's very athletic. I think that Dennis Allen will be very creative with how he utilizes Chase Young and then maybe making Cameron Jordan more of an interior rusher in certain sub packages and situations. So this makes this front a lot more intriguing and tough to defend, which therefore makes your back end better. I also like the Willie Gay signing that they picked up as well. So I look at this defense, and typically they're always pretty strong. I think they need to take a look at safety depth. Corner's going to be interesting to see what they do with Marshawn Lattimore. Is he staying? Is he going? There's been rumors about that. Obviously, offensively, it's a different manner. Offensive line could still use some work. And they did bring in Cedric Wilson as a number 3 receiver, which I think is solid. So the Saints are going to be in that mix for the NFC South. They feel like a weird team to me because they just didn't really have a pattern last year. They didn't have a tangible feel, an identity on offense or defense. It felt like a talented team that wasn't molded or crafted to be a good team. And part of that's on coaching. But I'm intrigued by the changes that they have made. And diving deeper into Chase Young, right? So last season, according to Pro Football Reference statistics, he played 58% of the snaps in San Francisco, 84% of the snaps in Washington. Big difference. In his rookie season, he played 78% in his first season, 80% in his second season. He was a Pro Bowler in his first season. In terms of advanced statistics, he had 25 combined tackles last year. He had 25 pressures, which was actually the most of his career. Last season, he did play one more game than he did in his first season. So, at least according to Pro Football Reference, his numbers have increased. Looking at his PFF stuff, he was 34th in the NFL, according to PFF, on 891 snaps, which, if you are wondering, would be the most snaps that any Saints player would have played. I think that does also include playoffs, though, if I'm not mistaken. So, obviously, the Saints didn't make the playoffs. Just for reference, Carl Granderson ranked 4 spots lower than Chase Young last year. Cameron Jordan ranked 7 spots lower. And then Passignon, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Correct me if I'm wrong. Also was 52nd. So that's a pretty strong 4-man rotation of the Saints. And, looking at Chase Young, his strongest grades. He had a 69.8 coverage grade, and he had his strongest grade being his pass rush grade at 74.5, which was 10 points higher than Granderson or anyone really on the Saints, including Cameron Jordan. So Chase Young had the 32nd pass rush grade in the NFL. Where he struggled was run defense at 52nd. A lot of that comes down to, I think, scheme. I think what you're asking him to do, and I think sometimes effort. He just showed a lack of effort at times in, at least it seemed, in San Francisco. His engine wasn't always 100%, which is concerning. But the man is a high-end prospect, 6'5", 264, second overall pick in 2020. A beast out of Ohio State. 24th in 2021, he graded, according to PFF, and 5th in 2020, his rookie season. Can he find his way back to his rookie form? That's an interesting question to ask. If he does, this will change this defense and make it a really good unit. If you're able to mix in a really productive Chase Young for $13 million, that's going to make this team dangerous. Deeper at his pass rush numbers in terms of pressures, let's see where they graded him out. They graded him, and according to, let's see, San Francisco, he had 36 pressures last year. Seems low to me for some reason. And he had 4 hits, set 27 hurries. That's according to PFF. That seems low. I don't know why, but that, or I guess that's only on San Fran. Okay, that makes sense. He had 36 pressures on San Fran, and then he had 38 on Washington. So that makes a lot more sense. That makes a lot more sense. I was like, what? 30? That doesn't make sense, bro. So that would have been the highest as well over all the other Saints players. Granderson finished with 58 as the total. So yeah, this is a big move. Granderson obviously had 9 sacks, but Chase Young would have been their most consistent pass rusher in terms of pressure. So this definitely upgrades them, gives them a piece to work with, gives them a moldable young guy that I still think has a lot of potential. At least he's healthy. He's gone through a full year of coming back to football. It's really hard to come back from any sport after 2 years. It's really hard to put yourself back into that shape, into that game shape, into that condition, playing against the best competition in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl. That's a really tough thing to do. So I wouldn't be shocked if Chase Young was a better player this year than he really has ever been in his career. I think the Saints could potentially be getting a steal with Chase Young here. And I predicted it on Bleacher Report, funny enough. So I'm actually happy that this happened because I did call the shot. Chase Young is a New Orleans Saint. Saints fans, let me know what you guys think. As somebody that watched the 49ers closely, I think you're getting somebody that could prove to be inconsistent. He could prove to be more of what he was with the 49ers. But he could also prove that he's just a guy that was really talented, that missed a couple years, that wasn't in the best scheme fit for him. And now that he's been back to football shape and back and healthy, he is still as good as we thought he could be. Chase Young reminds me a lot of Jadeveon Clowney in so many different ways. He plays like him, he has similar strengths, and he has similar track record in terms of injury. And I believe we could be seeing a similar archetype of career where Clowney left Houston, kind of was up and down, ended up bouncing around team to team, but still stayed productive. And I think Chase Young could be that type of guy, a guy that's reputation maybe bigger than his play level, but he's also capable of definitely helping teams. So, Chase Young to the Saints. Let me know what you think. Gronk spike the like button. We'll see you in the next video. Peace. The New Orleans Saints have added to the linebacking core. Next to Demario Davis, you may find a Super Bowl champion. His name is Willie Gay. 1 year, max $5 million. Sounds like an absolute steal to me because I'm a Willie Gay fan. I think he's super athletic. He is a great cover linebacker, and although maybe limited in some degree, he's a really good find for the Saints defense, especially when it comes to middle of the field coverage. He played quite a bit last year for the Chiefs because they had a Nick Bolton injury, and Drew Tranquill was in there with Gay for a lot of the season as true starters on the defense. But by the end of the year, he was kind of like their third linebacker. So they would have 4 linebackers that they would use. And Leo Chanel is kind of like their hybrid edge linebacker run stuffer. Bolton is their middle linebacker, true best linebacker on the team, all-around guy. And then they've got Willie Gay, who's coverage guy. And then they've got Drew Tranquill, who ended up being coverage guy that ended up being pass rush guy out of nowhere. So Willie Gay, 2 years ago, was probably his statistical best season. 88 tackles, 2.5 sacks, interception for a touchdown. Last year, he had 1 interception, 1 sack, 58 tackles, and 3 fumble recoveries. Last season, his passer rating allowed was 76, which I think showcases his ability in coverage. At 6'1", 243, Willie Gay can move. He can run, he's fast, he's athletic, and he's good in coverage. And what I like about him as well is he just appears, I don't know the measurables on the guy, but it appears like he's got really long arms. And it feels like he takes up a lot of space. And he can gain ground really quickly, and he's able to cover a lot. Like, so whether it's coming on a blitz and getting his hands up, or it's dropping back in coverage and, just playing a lot of ground, he's able to kind of collapse in the middle of the field on a receiver rather quickly and get his hands on the ball. He had 8 passes defense 2 years ago, which speaks to what I'm talking about. His snap percentages, 25 as a rookie, 57 in his second year, 69 in his third year, and 62 in his fourth year. The reason I think it dropped a little bit in the last season is because of the added dimension of Drew Tranquill, which I think limited his snaps a little bit. But the year before he was like a true starter next to Bolton, playing on pretty much every snap. He just missed 3 games, so that snap percentage went down. In terms of his PFF grade, he was 72nd in football, 32nd in career, 32nd 2 years ago, 20th in 2021. And he did actually have a good run defense grade of 30th in the league. He played 103 snaps on the D-line, 520 snaps in the box, 63 snaps in slot corner. Coming out of Mississippi, 2nd round pick, Willie Gay. The Saints have found a starting linebacker.